Welcome to r/slash best of Redditor updates, where OP literally shoots a guy twice. Our next Reddit post comes from r/slash self. And the title of this post is something else, so let the title also serve as a warning for the contents of this story. I shot my stalker tonight. For the past 6 months, I've been relentlessly stalked and had threats against my life made from someone that I dated for a month. It started with phone calls upwards of 45 to 50 a day. 50-page text messages, and him showing up outside my house at 5 a.m. When I wouldn't comply or feed the negative attention, I began to receive threats, claims that he would murder me and get away with it, and all he would have to do is flee the country. He would tell me that he shouldn't have to force me to be his friend or give him another chance, or else. Every time I blocked his number from contacting me, he would then call me from a different number. Or he would try and pretend to be other people or have his friends or sometimes even random strangers that he would ask on the street. I once scared an unsuspecting guy half to death after informing him that the person who had just told him to call me was actually stalking me, and I sent him proof. The guy ended up calling the cops on my stalker, who fled, of course. After about 2 months of that, I was evicted from my apartment building due to my neighbors no longer feeling safe because of his looming presence. I then applied for and was granted a temporary protective order. A few days later, I received a picture message of the note that the sheriff civil had left on my door of my stalker's then residence with a message taunting me saying, "What you're trying to do was stupid. A restraining order is just a piece of paper." So ultimately, my stalker just ended up avoiding the process server, simple as that. I wasn't being protected at all. On May 31st of this year, I relocated. This did not deter my stalker. He vowed to find me wherever I moved to and threatened that if he couldn't find me, he would be able to find my family. And then he sent me a map of my mother's home, whom he'd never met. I received a message from a woman claiming to be my former landlord, letting me know that I owed a balance on my account, and to avoid late fees, I needed to pay the amount, which I could do with the link provided in the message. Turns out it was my stalker pretending to be a woman, and the link turned out to be a tool used to grab the user's IP address when I clicked the link. Upon this discovery, I changed my phone number and began to systematically dismantle any trace of an online presence that I once had. This action only seemed to anger him, and before deleting the profiles outright, I would attempt to block him from contacting me. Each and every time I blocked one, he simply created a new one and proceeded to contact me as if nothing happened. 12 different Reddit accounts, 9 different Tumblrs, 10 different Instagrams, 3 Meetup accounts, 4 Facebook accounts, and even 3 Duolingo accounts and MySpace. Yes, MySpace. I then received an empty package from him addressed to my former residence with the declaration, "Address correction requested, do not forward." I'm assuming that he thought that the post office would adhere to his request and return the package to him with my new corrected address on it. Mid-July, he created a profile using my photos and likeness to threaten my family. When I didn't respond, he posted semi-nude pictures of me on the profile in an attempt to blackmail me into speaking with him. I did not contact him, and I reached out to Twitter to report the account and have it removed, which they eventually did. One day, I awoke around 8 p.m. to vigorous knocking and ringing on my doorbell. I look out my window to see who it was, and I was horrified to see my stalker there. I called the cops, and of course, he fled once again. This incident was followed by threatening emails from my stalker demanding that I meet him somewhere because he had found me and the next time I would wake up to gunshots, and that if I didn't, he would taser me and R-word me in the butt using... Whoa! Okay, wow! Sorry guys, this one, okay, let me try this sentence again. He says, quote, "I will taser you and R-word you in the butt using your boyfriend's blood as lube." Okay. As you can imagine, he didn't type butt, he typed something else. Wow, I didn't see that one coming. Okay, sorry, that one shook me. All right. This past Sunday night, I woke up at 6:45 a.m. to the ringing and banging again. I recorded him on video while I was on the phone with police. He fled on foot once again, and I was hit with the same hoopla from law enforcement. Well, we can't really do much because technically at this point he hasn't done anything wrong. Then why does he flee, I wonder? I obtained a temporary protective order again, but I had no solid address for this dangerous person. So this is why I'm coming to you, Reddit, because I'm in dire need of a private investigator to assist with finding the residence of this person so he can be served. Can you help me find someone who can assist me? I've developed insomnia, depression, anxiety, and paranoia. I'm completely isolated. I'm 22 years old and I have no social life anymore. I have 0 friends. I've become a shell of my former self. I faced eviction and I lost a job because of this man's behavior, and I don't know how much longer I can survive. There's actually so much more filler stuff that he's done to terrorize me, but for the sake of this already lengthy post, I tried to condense it. I have proof in the form of recordings, event diaries, and copies of all of his threats, interactions, and attempt to communicate. Then, 2 weeks later, OP posted an update. I'm writing this staring at the mess the police left for me, in a bit of a fog. After 6 months of stalking and threats against my life, my stalker finally snapped and decided to kick my door in and make good on his promise. Out of fear, this past month I began sleeping with a chair propped against my front door to give myself a few extra precious seconds in case of emergency. I shudder to think how differently things might have turned out if I hadn't barricaded the door. I awoke around 1:15 a.m. to the sound of the door giving away after one kick, followed by the sounds of my stalker struggling to dislodge the chair while forcing his way inside. I jumped up and grabbed my gun that I've learned to carry everywhere, even in the shower. I stood at the top of the stairs and fired twice, hitting him in the chest. I heard him scream, his disbelief that I stood up for myself. It was like 0 to 100 in milliseconds. I've never been so afraid in my life. I don't know if he's still alive, but I do know the cops have him, and that's what helps the most. After months of him evading the cops, I began to question whether or not he was unstoppable, untraceable. Like Houdini, he would just murder me and get away with it. As of now, I'm in a haze of guilt, surprise, relief, and disbelief. I shook as the cops' canine units dragged him out from his hiding place under a bush. I survived when so many people don't. Oh my god, I survived! Then, OP includes the link to the actual news article written about her story. In Las Vegas, a woman shot her stalker after he kicked in her back door. She had been living in fear, showering with a gun, and propping a chair up against her door for just this sort of situation. Police say former boyfriend Douglas Eugene Jackson, 22, kicked in her door at around 1 a.m. last Friday. Jackson left the scene and tried to hide in some bushes, but police dogs quickly found the stalker. He was treated for his injuries at University Medical Center in Southern Nevada. Jackson now faces charges of home invasion and aggravated stalking. Then, 6 years later, we have an update. This is a news article. A Nevada man has been sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to stalking a female acquaintance while on parole for a similar crime that happened in Las Vegas. The Washoe County District Attorney's Office in Reno announced the sentence for 28-year-old Douglas Eugene Jackson on Friday. At the time of the threats, Jackson... Wait, is this a different woman entirely? Jackson was on parole for stalking a former girlfriend in Las Vegas. That woman ended up shooting him at her home. Yo, this guy got shot twice in the chest, then recovered and is like, you know what? I think I'll stalk a different woman. Wow. Then, 9 years later, some other news article comes out about OP, where OP is kind of describing her story, and this is a very long, dry news article, so let me see what's worth sharing here. He argued that he was a good man who deserved a chance. OP says, "At first I blew it off and I was kind of annoyed. I was like, who do you think you are? But then it started to get really scary really quickly. He started sending me pictures of the outside of my house, telling me that he was planning a raid." Then the news article kind of recaps what happened, but I'm not going to reread it because we know all that. The man threatened to kill her and said he knew that he was going to get away with it because he was a white man and she was a black woman. OP was later assigned a detective to her case, but the first time that OP met that detective, the detective said that he had met the stalker who seemed like a nice guy, and the detective suggested that it could be a misunderstanding. OP said, "I knew in that moment that this man was going to kill me and he was going to get away with it." The article continues recapping events, and then OP describes the moment that he kicked in the door. I remember just grabbing my firearm off the table, and I wasn't angry, I wasn't upset. I had just made the decision that it's either him or it's me, and I chose me. And I shot him. OP went on to work at a gun range and took part in Refuse to be a Victim courses to help other women feel empowered to protect themselves. She now works at a big tech company and never takes any moment of her life for granted. Her stalker was sentenced to 15 years in prison. I like this comment from Narethi. Jackson was 28 when he was sentenced to 15 years in 2020, so he'll be 43 when he gets out, assuming that he isn't released early. That's a lot of decades of life left to terrorize the women in his community. Then again, this loser has already been shot twice. Here's hoping his next victim uses a rocket launcher to turn him into a puff of red mist. Our next Reddit post comes from r/relationships. I'm a 25-year-old woman, and I just discovered that my 28-year-old boyfriend of 3 years is cheating. Tonight is the biggest night of his life. Help me. I won't go into all the gory details of our relationship. We were in love, and, well, I still love him, but I found out that clearly he doesn't. I discovered proof that he's been cheating on me for a while in the form of small home movies of them. I don't know the girl, and from the looks of their conversation, she has no idea that I exist. Tonight is the biggest night of my boyfriend's life. He's receiving a state award at a big dinner with a few hundred people attending, including his mom, dad, and councilmen. In fact, the only reason I discovered this transgression is because I've been putting together a little video for him to enjoy of some of the key moments of his life. You know, typical sappy stuff. I'm burdened with a lot of power right now, and I don't know if I have it in me to do the right thing, or if I even know the right thing. I'm blinded with tears of rage and sadness and betrayal. But at the same time, I love him, have loved him, and do I really want to do this? The relationship is over, no doubt about it. I am not a woman who will take her man cheating on her. Certainly not. That's not the issue. The issue is that there are cutesy selfies of the two of them. A lot of them, and only shared between the two of them. Nothing lewd, even though there is plenty of lewd stuff. Do I sneak in one of these pictures into the reel as a way of letting him know that I know? Or do I simply confront him after his moment in the sun passes? I'm not going to pick up everything and leave without cutting contact. That's not my style, and it wouldn't make me feel good, just very sad. Do I do the awful thing for once in my life? To anyone looking at the snap reel, it would just look like a picture of him and a friend. But to him, and to me, it would be a private message, an outing. Help me, Reddit, I don't know what to do. We have this featured comment from Bibba Beep. Nah, you know what? If this is something that only you and him would pick up on, then slip that photo into the slideshow. Make eye contact with him when the photo appears on the screen. Then, when it's over, just stand up and walk out. It ain't the high road, but nobody needs to walk the high road all the time. Then, 6 weeks later, OP posted an update. So, what did I do? I did the immature, vengeful thing, and I don't regret it. I took a few photos of the two of them. Tasteful photos that gave off no indication other than he might be a childhood friend. I slipped them into the snap reel, and I spoke kindly of him at the podium. Then, after my turn was finished, I walked out. I drove home feeling calm and in control. 20 minutes later, the text messages started. Where did I go? What did I know? Where did I find the photos? Was there more in store for him? I texted him, I know that you've been sleeping with her, but there are no more photos. There weren't any more, and of course I left it at that. He didn't come home that night, or the next. The next day, he called me to ask if we could meet and talk at a public location. I agreed to meet him at Starbucks. I arrived early and waited for him. He showed up a few minutes late and took the seat across from me. He started off with excuses of how it just happened and he regrets it fully. That she doesn't mean anything to him and that she looked like a girl that he had a crush on in high school and he was powerless against his teenage self. I didn't interrupt him. I just let him have his time. When he was done and looking at me for a sign of what might happen next, all I could say was, "So, where'd you stay the past few nights?" "Her house." "And what'd you do?" He wouldn't answer. There was no doubt in my mind. Honestly, I knew that I was leaving him. He talked over himself, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, saying that he'd change. I told him that I didn't want him to have to change himself. That if that's who he was, naturally, someone who cheats on his girlfriend, then that's not someone that I wanted to be with. He said that he was thinking of proposing to me, and all I could say after that was, good thing I found out beforehand. Fast forward a few weeks later. He's moved out, and I'm doing well. We've cut off contact. People ask me about him all the time, and I just let them know that he left me for a girl who looked like his high school crush. So, that's the end. We're broken up. We are never, ever, ever getting back together. I don't feel any regret for how I handled it. Like one commenter said, there's no need to take the high road all the time. Man, how does a guy beg for forgiveness and then be like, oh, by the way, the past 2 nights, I was boinking my mistress. I mean, I really love you. I don't want anyone else. But hey, do you mind if I take a shower real quick before we continue this conversation? Because I kind of still smell like her, actually. Man, the audacity of some people, I just don't understand it. I'm proud of you, OP. Sometimes revenge is necessary. That was r/Best of Redditor updates. And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.